This is a testimony from Florida entitled, "Prayer Provides Immunity and Contagious Disease Prove Powerless." I was fortunate to grow up in a loving home where Christian Science was cherished and practiced. The memory of many childhood healings left no doubt in my thought about the effectiveness of prayer as taught in Christian Science to heal both quickly and permanently. One particular healing stands out. It was actually a healing my brother had of a contagious disease. I was about 10 years old at the time. My parents believed it to be German measles, based on all the symptoms. A Christian Science practitioner was called for healing prayer. And I would just like to mention, this person told me that the practitioner who was called had been a friend of Gilbert Carpenter Sr., and that she called him actually Dad Carpenter and would visit him in Rhode Island, and that it was through him, I'm sure, that this family got the so-called, quote, unauthorized books of Martha Wilcox and Bicknell Young and others. So this family was able to have this treasure trove of wonderful works. And she said this practitioner was such a wonderful healer, and she was also a teacher. By that I mean teaching as she healed. And this person said that she had never found this since that time until she came to our church, where here too we have not only just healing but also teaching as how to live this science. So I will continue. A Christian Science practitioner was called for healing prayer, and my brother was healed quickly. The practitioner also prayed to know that man was immune from disease, as well as that there was no contagion. Consequently, no one else in the family could contact this belief called disease, and no one did. My brother's quick healing was the end of it. As Mary Baker Eddy states in Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, quote, "Truth handles the most malignant contagion with perfect assurance," end quote. And then also, the prophylactic and therapeutic, that is, the preventative and curative arts, belong emphatically to Christian Science, also from Science and Health. I did not think about this experience for years until I had a sleepover with my best friend in high school. She and I shared the same bed during the night, and both of us went to school together the next day. By mid-afternoon, my friend, who was not a Christian Scientist, was sent home from school with German measles. Her case was medically confirmed, as her father was a medical doctor. I never came down with any of the symptoms of this disease. Then, as an adult and in my early 40s, I was required to have blood tests done for some international travel. I remember the nurse coming out of the back with the results and saying, "Your tests are all fine. And oh, by the way, you still have an immunity to German measles." She then stated that the effectiveness of childhood vaccinations would have usually worn off at that point in my life, and it was very unusual to find that I still had this immunity. Apparently, prayer had resulted in a lifetime immunity to this disease, as I am now, humanly speaking, many years beyond this blood test and still have never contracted this disease. I just smiled and thanked her for her work. I did not tell her that my parents were Christian Scientists and had successfully applied for an exemption from vaccinations when I was a child. Nor did I tell her that I had never had the disease. I was smiling because I knew the good report was the result of those early childhood prayers by a beloved practitioner, proving once again that prayer is the most effective and reliable means of protection from disease, and that prayer can be both curative and preventative. As an expansion of this concept, as God is immaculate and pure, so is man, and therefore man is immune to anything that would say otherwise. And an additional thought on contagion and immunity, which may prove to be beneficial to the reader, is that I experienced childhood colds, etc., which seemed normal at the time, but I was always healed of these false claims. I was told by a practitioner at a later date that as one grows in science, one will cease to have colds and flu because progress is the law of being. A paraphrasing of Miscellany, quote, "For progress is the law of infinity," end quote. This has proved to be the case. I just stopped getting them. How wonderful that our own spiritual progress will also provide immunity to disease. For this experience and for the many healings which I have experienced over my lifetime, I am truly grateful. I am so grateful for Christian Science. I'm grateful for that timely testimony when we hear so much about flu seasons and flu shots and contagion, and to know in Christian Science we do have the perfect immunity, and that is the expression of life, truth, and love. That radiation of joy keeps us immune from all these false suggestions, which sometimes lead to physical problems. At one time in my life, I also suffered from colds and flu and everything else every winter. And one time, a practitioner who was helping me told me that a cold is a form of crying. And I realized then that I had been depressed and even crying at that time, and it seemed to have taken form in this cold that was lasting for several weeks. That left a big impression on me, and as Fairley mentioned, the work that we get done in science doesn't just stop in a day or a week or even a year. It's continuous. And so the next year, thinking about that and thinking about how this cold is a form of crying, I made sure that I was expressing much joy and gratitude, that I was not going to be depressed or whining or full of self-pity about anything. And as I expressed joy and gratitude and all the good qualities of God, I never came down with cold or flu. That was a wonderful winter, and so it has been. God gives us immunity from anything that is not like Him. That's His law. And in Mrs. Eddy's wonderful article on contagion in Miscellaneous Writings, she says, "If only the people would believe that good is more contagious than evil, since God is omnipresence, how much more certain would the doctor's success and the clergyman's conversion of sinners? And if only the pulpit would encourage faith in God in this direction, and faith in mind over all other influences governing the receptivity of the body, theology would teach man, as David taught, from Psalms, 'Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High thy habitation, there shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling.'" Thank God for Christian Science. Thank God that we have these wonderful services, that we can be here together and hear the beautiful healing readings and the powerful healing testimonies, everyone sharing the good that they've experienced. I'm so grateful to be here tonight. Thank you all.